I'm a hard-working man.
Hi, this is Concrete Charlie. Thank you for tuning in to Ask Concrete Charlie. Last week, we devoted the show to how we install a steel bar stitch when repairing a foundation crack. By installing stitches, we eliminate the movement that causes repairs to fail, and that's why we issue a lifetime transferable guarantee. What we want to do this week is expand on the problems that foundation cracks can cause if left unrepaired. Hey Tim, last week I cut you off when you started describing some of the damage moving cracks can cause. I only cut you off because I didn't want to run out of time on a topic worthy of a lengthy discussion. So let's get started, Tim.
Well, Charlie, a lot of times we locate where a crack in the foundation is by seeing the damage in the brick and mortar directly above the crack. You see, when you have a brick house and there are cracks in the foundation, you can easily see where the movement deflects into the brick and creates a crack up through the masonry.
Well, usually, the wider the crack, the greater the damage in the bricks. Even some hairline cracks with minimal movement chase slightly up into the mortar joints. A lot of times, you don't even realize that there's a problem because the chasing isn't always obvious.
Well, when a brick and mortar is damaged, most people think the problem is with the masonry and don't even think about the foundation below it. And that's why they have the area tuck pointed several times and never figure out that there's another problem.
Once again, I'm glad we can help educate homeowners on foundation concerns. Whenever you see that separation in the brick and mortar, it's crucial to eliminate the cause to avoid greater problems. What kind of additional problems can foundation cracks cause, Tim?
Well, for example, if the cracking in a brick ends at a window frame, moisture and air can enter between the brick and the window. Moisture can damage the interior wall. The outside air can also create a heating and cooling effect.
Other things to consider are bugs. There doesn't have to be too big of an opening for insects to find their way in. I've also seen masonry movement crack through glass block windows because those windows are set in the brick with mortar as a continuous part of the wall.
Unfortunately, unless a crack is leaking, most homeowners don't associate any of those above-grade issues with their foundation.
Well, what ends up happening is homeowners have the masonry tuck pointed only to have the cracks reopen. When we finally get the call, our assessment seems to come from left field because they've been focusing on the symptoms of the problem for so long and haven't considered the foundation below.
It's frustrating because they look at the money they've already spent as a waste. Now they feel like the repairs are pretty expensive.
Well, you're absolutely right. If the crack would have been injected and stitched first, and then the masonry repaired, the cost would have been substantially less.
In some cases, if left unrepaired, cracked walls can bow in and become a major structural concern. The only way to repair the wall is to install wall anchors. And before we inject with epoxy and stitch with multiple steel bars. If it's too extreme, the walls have to be saw cut, removed, and then re-poured.
Well, as much as folks spend in their yards, it's a good idea for homeowners to walk around their houses and closely examine the top of the foundation that is exposed. If there is a crack in the foundation, especially if the mortar or brick above is cracked, it's not enough to be complacent because there's never been a leak. After a few years, not only is it more likely to leak, but also the damage to the other areas will become a lot more costly to repair. When you see a crack, repair it right away, and make sure the repairs address the whole problem. Injecting and stitching is the only method that will accomplish that. Hey, Tim, why don't you read an email we received after last week's show?
Sure. This is one from Trish in Willow Springs, Illinois. Dear Concrete Charlie, I listened to your podcast last week right after you came over for an estimate. I know why you're going to install stitches in my foundation crack, but I don't understand why you're proposing to install 2 stitches in some of the cracks and only 1 in others. I'd like to understand what the difference is between one crack as opposed to another.
Thanks, Trish, and I hope I can clear that up for you. Most cracks can be stitched with 1 steel bar, and that will sufficiently add the necessary reinforcement to prevent that crack from re-breaking. However, if the pressure from outside has opened the crack wider, the crack may still move with only 1 stitch installed. So, in order to remedy that, we install a second stitch either above or below the first stitch from the other side of the crack. We call this lacing because we are binding the crack from both sides and across, like the laces on your shoes. Now, the movement on the outside will not re-break the repaired crack.
Not very many people know how to repair those wider cracks permanently.
Well, there are a lot of other tricks up our sleeves, as you well know, Tim. Sometimes we have to dig up the crack area and install a couple of stitches from the outside as well. We may even have to underdig the footing and pour an underpin if the footing has been compromised.
Bottom line, Tim, you're right. No one has the experience or the know-how that we do when it comes to repairing foundation cracks and preventing future damage caused by foundation cracks. No two cracks are alike, so having these decades of experience is priceless. It's amazing that there's so many other guys out there trying to fix cracks, especially without doing what we do and knowing what we know.
Anyone sell crack repairs to homeowners knowing that there's a good chance those repairs might fail?
Well, in all fairness, I'm sure they think the repairs will do the job. The problem is, most haven't been around 35 years to learn the conditions that cause repairs to fail. That's why, after all these years, we're still the only ones that issue a lifetime guarantee.
Well, to me, it's all about doing the job once and doing it right the first time.
Well, you summed it up perfectly. Well, Tim, next week we have plenty of questions to read and answer, so we should be pretty busy.
So I guess that means it's time to say goodbye.
Don't look so sad. It's not goodbye. We'll be back next week. We're just taking a break for a few days. You know, kind of like when you go to lunch. Don't forget to send your emails with your questions and stories to charlie@concretecharlie.com. You can go to my website, www.concretecharlie.com. You can see my videos on my channel at YouTube, /TheConcreteCharlie. Every podcast episode will be uploaded to YouTube, so if you don't have a video MP3 player, you can still see any video we include with our show. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget, if you don't ask Concrete Charlie, you probably won't get the right answer.
Poor working man, I got it all on the line for a piece of the promised land.